Hello and welcome to the Amusing Panda live stream. Your home for all things War Machine, musing and amusing. Never going to stop screwing that up. And this week we are joined by a big panoply of guests as we introduce the new USA WTC team committee. So let's pop it over and see who we got with us. So Evan, why don't you start us off with a round of introductions?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Evan Gunther. I got involved in this community through my husband, who's been playing for a very long time. In fact, we met when he was actually gearing up for his first WTC. And then through him, I've met so many amazing people here who've just become close friends. And in fact, a few of you guys attended my wedding. So that's pretty awesome. And then over the last few years, I have just kind of watched Zosha as she's worked through the committee, and it kind of inspired me to get involved.
That's awesome. Thank you for being with us. And then we have returning guest Erica.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erica, Delaware War Machine, tried and true, the video editor for our YouTube channel. I am a tournament organizer for a lot of the Delaware steamrollers and tournaments. My husband, Andy, and I, we TO all the events at the Nova Open that takes place in Washington, D.C., Labor Day weekend. And I got the opportunity and honor to play Team USA, Team 2, WTC in 2025.
Team Tummy Bunnies.
Team Tummy Bunny.
I saw Dan rocking. It was the first one I saw that first one of those jerseys I saw in person. They're super fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being here. And we got Brandon.
Hey everybody, Brandon Owens. I've been playing War Machine for about 12 years now. I started off listening to Alex Cosma on Dominate for Two, talking about competitive War Machine and dreaming of traveling to events like the I-5 team tournament and all the other illustrious activities he got to engage in. And within a few years, I was doing it myself. And at this point, I've had the honor and privilege of traveling to the WTC on behalf of the USA, I think 4 times now. I've been a captain twice. I also do as much organizing in SoCal as I can. I'm putting on a big tournament that's already filled up for April of next year, which is the first one I've run since the pandemic. So I'm excited about that. And while I like to think that all of those reasons are the reasons that Zosha selected me for this interim committee, the only thing she mentioned is that she wanted me on the committee because I argue real good.
Well, yeah, you've gone a couple of times, and every time, like, appropriately enough, laid down the law on the big unruly group chats and kept us on task. By the way, I didn't know whether you were like yanking my chain, whether you when you messaged that to me about like starting listening to Dominate for Two back in the day. So that's really sweet. That touches my heart. And then we got another returning guest. There must be tyrants on the field because it's Joe.
Hey, thanks, Alex. Excited to be here. Excited to be part of the committee. I am Joe Girard, also known as Tyrants on the Field. I do a lot of things, including content creation around the WTC, most notably, doing all the list analysis and then meta updates on basically all the big events.
You were everybody's go-to data guy this year.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of data deep dive and love getting into the weeds and into the numbers. So that's part of what I bring to the committee as a whole, along with some additional organizational skills. I run the NOL out of the Tried and True Discord, been running that for the last few years. Excited to be running more events in this coming year, and looking forward to making sure that we have the most competitive teams that we can possibly.
Awesome. And then we have 2 more members of the interim committee that couldn't make it this evening. So Mr. Seth Cohen, judge and event organizer extraordinaire, And then Sean Hopkins, who I believe is our global committee liaison. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then I don't know if she's still in the car or not, but we have Mrs. Zosha Van Meter, the one woman committee for years, who was the force behind the scenes making everything happen. Zosha, no worries if you're still on the road, but happy to have you with us when you get the chance.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I am here, and I should be back at my desk in about 10 minutes, but I am listening. Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, wait, and also, just before we get started, I think we have a wild husband in the chat here.
Oh yeah, I did
Yeah.
tell him that I was doing a podcast and sent him a screenshot, so I'm sure that he got several Discord alerts and popped in. So please keep the trolling light. I had a long day at work, Jake.
Jake's not here yet.
We had the other husband in here. Or I guess the other husband? No Andy yet.
No, he's playing Magic tonight at the brewery.
Like, oh, you're on another podcast. Zippity doo. No, I definitely get it as like the podcasting dynamic duo. Yeah, but before we get started, I just want to prefer a personal and special thank you to Zosha for really being the driving force behind getting the USA WTC team selecting the selection committee, and making sure all the organizational details were sussed out and herding cats for the last few years. Which brings us to the main item of news this week, which is big changes coming to the USA WTC committee, and making it less of a permanent one-woman show and creating a permanent institution for open, transparent, and community building USA participation in the World Team Championship. So this show is meant to be a bit of an ongoing Q&A. Obviously, we'll talk about the new committee, talk about the new charter, and what we're all up to as people who are very invested in this World Team Championship thing and representing the United States. But this episode is going to be very Q&A heavy. For those of you in the chat, as I see stuff, I'm going to be grabbing it, and as we have space in the discussion, bringing you guys some face-to-face answers from the new interim committee. So yeah, for those who may not be in the know, what is the World Team Championship and what is the USA WTC committee about?
I think we should have Zosha, if she's able, lead off with this because she's been doing it for so long. If she's not, definitely Evan, because I think she's got the shoes to fill.
Honestly, I would love to see Evan field this if she's comfortable, and I can fill in if there are any other further questions.
Yeah, I can jump in. I mean, there's a lot of things that the WTC committee is aiming to do. The main ones are things that a lot of players already see. It's managing the, players and the captains, helping with team selection and really establishing that criteria, collecting payments. There's a lot of admin work on the back end, jersey coordination. And then some things that other people that you may not see and things that the committee wants to work towards are going to be things like fundraising for our WTC teams, and then providing clear guidelines on how to work towards a future WTC, as well as sharing opportunities to participate in events around the country. So those are things in the background that we're working towards to help really foster the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I guess people may not know necessarily, it's a year-long process to, you know, to show up and field a team or 3 or however many it is. And you guys are the heart and soul of making a lot of that happen. It's also a very expensive event to go to, and particularly for first timers, you know, it really makes a big difference to have a village behind you.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I know I cut someone off there, but I didn't catch who it was.
I think you're good.
Yeah, so let's talk about, you know, what's taking shape. So I don't know what the old charter for the World Team Championship has been, but we've all been doing it as a country for 12, 13 years now. And y'all broke the news, you know, last week, that the USA WTC Committee, i.e. the organizers who manage liaising with the global WTC, picking the method by which teams are selected, and organizing a lot of back of house details, now have a new charter that you're opening up and soliciting feedback from the public on. Chris is asking how many WTCs have there even been. I think it was 2012 or 2013 that was the first one, minus 2 years from COVID. So 12 or 13 minus 2.
Yeah, so I think this year at WTC, the player packet, which clearly Chris didn't read, on the front of it, it said 10th anniversary.
Oh, brilliant.
10th
not
to razz you too much, Chris. I'm just joking.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, so you guys went public with a new charter and incorporation into a nonprofit organization, you know, to sort of ensure permanency and you know, a real sense of institution and transparency to this process that's like one of the big premier events of the competitive year. Can you guys talk to me about the new charter, why the change and what it means going forward?
Well, here's the neat part, Alex. We didn't have a charter before, apparently.
Yeah, at least not one that was written in a location which was accessible by current folks or Zosha. And if Zosha didn't have access to it, it doesn't exist.
12 years on gentleman's agreement. Okay.
But really what it does for us, being a nonprofit, is we have some advantages in terms of our ability to seek sponsorship, our ability to fundraise, our ability to provide outreach, and to support some goals laid out within the charter. Additionally, we've given ourselves a framework by which the committee can outlast any singular person or entity, which is really the important thing, is that we are thinking about this as a long-term institution that is going to outlast any one of the people sitting up here long after we're gone. So as long as there's a War Machine, as long as there's a WTC, the U.S. has the organizational structure in place, the organizational frame in place to be able to support sending a team.
Yeah. I'm just gonna rebound off of that and break flow here to introduce a singular person, Mrs. Zosha Van Meter. You've been the force behind this gentleman's agreement making WTC happen for Americans for a number of years. You know, what's your thoughts and feelings going into this new era? And can you give us, like, you know, sort of your background on the changes and why they're being made?
Yeah, sure. So honestly, it was more of a, you can say, gentleman's agreement. I look at things from a governance and policy point of view. It was more best practice versus actual written policy. So, you know, I kind of just went by what the committee had done in the past, and then just kept trying to improve upon it, and you know, just kind of keep the, you know, keep the dream alive. And in recent years, so after Mark II, you know, the very fondly referred to golden age of War Machine, after Mark II and then into Mark III, we saw a mass exodus of players from the game. But I think that we can all agree that there is a very palpable and new growth within the community, and I'm super excited for it. I love the fact that the idea of putting together a committee of 5 or 6 people wasn't hard to do. You know, that that thinking of the kinds of leaders and the kind of perspectives and the kind of minds that you want to be part of an interim committee to help form, you know, as you said, this long lasting and substantial foundation for the future of the War Machine community. I'm very thankful and so appreciative that the community has that. And I'm very excited for what they're going to do. I think it's going to be a great thing. I love, you know, WTC, the WTCO, so the World Team Championship Organization, the global committee, it was born out of out of the community, and has always been run by players. It has always been organized and led by players, and it just shows the incredible strength that the community has on the international level. And I know that in the US we have the same kind of passion, organization, and leadership, and I'm really excited to see what they do over the next few years.
And we have a JRV45 asking in the chat. So you guys have worked together this new structure. Is there somewhere people can go to find it publicly?
Yes, so it's in the Facebook, it's on the Team USA Facebook page. There was a post that was put up last week that has a link to the charter in full, and also a feedback form where you can give any general feedback or ask questions. Maybe somebody more technically savvy than I can drop that into the chat for you.
Yep, and that'll also be in the description of this live stream. But I will see if I can dig that up. Yeah, so you've tapped this team of people to come in and, you know, work with the American War Machine playing public to create us a new charter. What are your guys' goals as members of the interim committee for your tenure? What are you really hoping to accomplish with setting out your country for 2026?
I can start.
From a-
I mean, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Evan.
I was just going to say, as an interim committee, our goals are pretty simple. We're going to
don't all speak at once. So just to be clear, like I'm going to try to take a back seat here whenever there are questions that come up about the future, because I think the interim committee has a lot of great ideas, and I don't want to step on whatever they're going to say. So I'm going to put myself on mute and just listen for now.
I think we had a momentarily deaf Zosha, and this may be a StreamYards thing. Sorry, Evan, go ahead.
All good. I was just going to say, like, our role in interim is pretty simple. Like, we're going to solicit feedback on the charter, make that an official charter to work by after we make any adjustments that are necessary based on the feedback. And then we'll be setting 2026 selection criteria. So we'll be reviewing the 2025 process and then refining it from there. Where that's an active discussion, so we don't have any decisions yet, but all of that will be released at the start of the new year. And then the last item for the interim committee would be setting up the process to select the full committee, whether any of us are on that but it'll go through an application process, and then we'll move on from there.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, it sounded like you wanted to jump in on this too. Yeah, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, Essentially, just to echo what Evan said, 100%. Those are the primary goals of the committee. The other sub goal of the committee is to just set the long-term committee up for long-term success. Get some of the things out of the way that we need to get set for 2026. And if we can't select a committee rapidly enough, be in place to be able to get some of the organizational pieces running and going that may need to be done prior to that selection. In terms of once teams have been started, making sure that we've got the organization in place to make sure all the checks are signed and all the I's are crossed and T's are dotted, and the players get the same experience they've had the last few years, just spread over multiple shoulders instead of one set of shoulders. So,
and we have Mr. Dan Spinball Wizard. Is it Hojnacki?
It's Bretanananaluski.
Bretanananaluski. We have Mr. Bretanananaluski.
It's Hojnacki. I always joke with him because he says his name can't be pronounced, and I always think of Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. So Bretanananaluski. You know what? Never mind. This don't matter.
So, and I know in the announcement you guys posted that your first big meeting as a committee is the 18th, 2 days from now. So Dan asks, do we expect to have team selections before ATC/Adepticon, which is going to be in April, or with that, or with the time crunch, is that unlikely?
We'll absolutely have teams selected before then. We don't have an exact date right now, but as people who have been players and been involved and been watching the process, we all know how critical it is to have as much time as possible for a team to prepare for the event. So one of our priorities is certainly going to be getting the selection criteria finished and the selection process started and then finished as soon as possible.
Yeah, that is absolutely the number one priority. And again, per our charter, I believe we have actual dates aligned in it. I think it's sometime in February we have to have that criteria in and team selected. So there is sort of a running clock as per our own charter. So right.
So you guys have got a flame under your butts here. For anyone who's been through a USA WTC or where you have a real short run-up window, it is a different year. Like 24 when Germany moved it up to mid-August. That was or early August even. That was a challenge to get the teams cohered, practiced, organized with 2 months less. So I imagine.
So one piece I do want to make sure is clarified that I don't think may have been clear to folks in the 2025 process. The 2025 process, as laid out, was designed to select the captains, and the captains then had autonomy to select the teams. I can't speak to what our selection criteria will be for this year, but I will make sure that we communicate very effectively as to how and why the criteria is being selected the way that it is. That is something I can promise as part of the interim team, is that we'll have transparency into that once those decisions are made. But for anybody that was wondering or questioning the process, the committee selected the captains last year, and then the captains had autonomy to select their teams. So just want to make sure that everyone is crystal clear on that point. And again, with our upcoming selection criteria, we'll make sure, however it falls, that it is crystal clear.
Gotcha. And we have from Dan again, Team Poland pronounced it right. Poland, I'll dive on this grenade. Poland is one of those countries like Ireland that does unspeakable things to the Roman alphabet. So I can't necessarily vouchsafe anyone else's ability to decipher their nonsense. Let's see. Tying into the selection process, we have Snarky Vids. I would be interested in hearing from the interim committee on what aspects of previous selection processes they have felt worked well and what processes they'd like to modify or improve. Erica, any
Yeah.
thoughts on this as a first timer? This is Danny apparently.
Hi.
But any thoughts on the selection process, having been through that crucible once yourself before, and just as a longtime spectator in the meta, what do you see about the selection process?
Sure. I'd love to take this question. Hi, Danny. Thank you. That's a great question. So one thing that was really important, that was a shared value among this interim committee, is transparency and having clear communication of expectations and feedback. So last year, what was introduced was a rubric, which you'd be evaluated as a player, and it would take things like how many IG qualifiers did you attend, how many big cons did you attend, team events, etc. And then there was an interview process that accompanied that. So it was a two-step process that would score you, and then your name would come out on a list with everybody else that had applied for that year. What was great about that is, prior to that, there wasn't any objective data that we could give as the USA board or committee to let players know hey, these are the things that you could either work on, like goals to hit that year, or things to improve on. We really didn't have that objective data before this scoring process. And yes, the scores were public. Thank you, Chris. And even the application, so everybody could see. I think overall that was a net positive to be able to give that feedback to the players. So let's say you wanted to apply for 2026, you could work on these things in 2025. It just gave a clear parameter of expectations of what we were looking for the
Right.
teams in general.
Right. Like we're looking for objective measures, and wherever you are in the future, you'll at least have some sense that's like, I should be targeting these metrics for myself and my personal performance.
Yeah, or even maybe some of the big shows to go to with the 5-man tournaments, right? Like Bocor, that's a big 5-man tournament. The ATC, there's the Dragon's Fury on the West Coast, and then
out in Portland.
Yep, and then Nova. Spoilers, you'll hear it here. We are bringing back a 5-man team tournament for 2026. So just I think that might be something that may be consistent with moving forward. Is like, hey, did you attend one of these big 5-man events? As an example.
Right. Yeah. Because that's interesting. There's individual personal performance. Like, I'm putting W's on sheets. I'm posting results on, in the national events. But even beyond that, okay, I have experience in this team format. I am used to herding a lot of cats and making this kind of effort, doing the matchup calculations, stuff like that.
Yeah, and even aside from on the player side, of course, that's very important, your skill and ability to play your army, but also you as a human and member of our community. Do you have integrity when you play? Are you a clean player? Those are also things that are scoreable, so to speak, on this. So it's the player as a whole, not necessarily if you're the best of the best of the best, but you are not a clean player, or you tilt easy. Like, those are things that play a part of this overall calculation.
Right.
So
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joe, please.
I do want to make very clear that criteria was made available, but that criteria was not commanded that the captains go by that. That was selection quantification that was used primarily to select the captains. The captains then had pure autonomy. So what I am advocating for as part of the process for pure transparency is that we incorporate that at the player level, provide that data, and utilize that as the pool from which the captains can pull from. And there's pros and cons to it, which we'll discuss behind the scenes. But that quantifiable data, those quantifiable numbers are what I want brought into the process more. Not to exclude anybody, but just to make sure that we have a qualified candidate pool, and that captains that may not have the experience level of, say, the captains we have today as we move forward, have good data with which to construct a team and have a good understanding of how to construct that team. And we get a qualified pool of applicants that everyone has transparency and understanding of. This is the pool, and this is what's been utilized to have the captains make their selections.
Right. That's an interesting one, and particularly the vector of sportsmanship. So I first went to the WTC, I think in 2017, and the selection criteria was completely different. Like the USA used to have the organizational committee, and then they had the selection committee, which was mostly well-known tournament organizers and people who had a good sense of, who's who nationwide. One of the things I remember being included at the time was references. So having character references or performance references as a matter of course. And it's interesting, that there's a desire to reintroduce that, because I think the paradigm people have seen from the last couple of years is people will apply either for consideration or for consideration as a captain, and then the captain picks from the pool of applicants plus people they know. It's really interesting to have, to start to be thinking in the direction of, okay, we can grab Iron Gauntlet, performance indicators. Can we grab indicators that vouch for, is this person great to travel with? Are they a good sport? Do they handle rules disputes amicably? The people want to know, are there any brownie points for being good looking?
You lose points. You better not be handsome.
Yes.
You don't get in.
That explains how I made it.
Also, Alex, I want to add that the way that it was done last year is an iteration of the way that it's been done most years, the last 8 years or so, where the captains are chosen and then the captains are given some degree of autonomy or free reign to choose their teammates. We've had years where captains could choose from anybody, not just the applicant pool. And we've had years like last year where captains had to choose from individuals who applied. The big difference between last year and I think most previous years is that in previous years, we had resumes for every applicant. They were made public during the application and selection process, and they were published. What we didn't have were a report or analysis or explanation from the committee as to why they chose each captain. So the main difference from my perspective is that having the set of objective criteria that gives you a numerical score shows you why captain number 1 was selected, why captain number 2 was selected. So you can see exactly why, not have to look at the resumes and try to interpret somebody's performance, their results, all of the various X factors that aren't captured in a resume to figure out why somebody was picked over someone else. And I think fundamentally, at least from my perspective, we recognize that there is a lot that goes into picking a team for WTC. All of us recognize that it's not just performance, it's not just sportsmanship. There's so many factors and variables involved. It's a very complicated process. And what we want to do as a committee is develop a selection process that supports and enables captains to form good teams, but not take away their ability to consider all of those variables and various factors that have to be considered when forming a team that's not only going to play well individually, but prepare well as a team leading up to the event, travel well as a team, and individuals be reliable and consistent and not fall short before the event, either because they burn out because they don't know how to pace themselves for a year-long competitive buildup, or because of financial reasons or social reasons or whatever. There's so many things that go into the analysis, and all we want to do is develop a process that helps those teams be able to form in a way that is as transparent as possible for everybody who is either interested or just following at home.
100% agree. We want to make sure that we send our best, 10 to 15 players, however many teams that we are granted, that we are sending the best teams that we can. And the best teams are not always the 1 through 5 best players by a rubric system. That plays into it, and that is a part of it. Obviously, everybody that we send should be able to play. And I think everybody we sent last year was able to play. It was one of our best placings collectively as a nation. We had 3 teams in the top 10. We had a top 2 podium from our team 1, which is fantastic, a hair's breadth from being in the finals. Darn England, darn Paddington, but we'll get them next year. But the whole point is that we enable the tools that ensure that we have the best teams going possible, that we have a pipeline and an understanding from the community of what they can do to be a part of it and be a part of the process, and how to help. Because ultimately, what I don't want to send is the 3 best individual teams. I want to send collectively the best Team America that we can, and however many teams we have as part of that they're sharing the information that they need to share, they're getting the practices that they need to have, and that they're getting the support that they need to do the best that they can within our ability to either provide data or provide a level of organization that the committee may be able to do, or the committee can do in general. Because again, I want to win. I want 1, 2, 3. I want gold, silver, bronze. That's what I'm trying to establish as what the goals of this committee should be, is that we are looking to be an excellent team in terms of sportsmanship and an excellent team in terms of result.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex, if I can
please
respond to Danny's question a little bit more as well, not trying to hog the mic, but when he asked that question, I immediately thought of the first year that I got to go to WTC. We had a very different selection process. That was still during the wild time where the team that won the ATC, the America's Team Championship, was Team 3 to get sent on behalf of the USA to WTC. So it was quite literally a Cinderella story route to WTC, a golden ticket that you could earn, you and 4 of your buddies, to go to WTC. And it was a very different process because you could get a team of 5 very well-known players who were going to go to WTC anyway, or you could get a team like the team that I was on, which was 5 players who nobody had ever heard of before the event, who somehow went the distance. And what I really, really liked, and there are a lot of negatives or downsides to that kind of selection, and I'm not necessarily advocating for that now, but what I did like about that aspect of selection then was that it provided a path for people who had never gone to WTC, who didn't otherwise have the qualifications to make those top 10 spots or even those top 15 spots, to get their chance, to let them level up as players and maybe come back the next year and actually be ready to be on team 1 or 2. And even more than that, it provided a level of engagement in the community for players across the country, knowing that if they could just work hard enough and win those games, they too could go to WTC. And it elevated, I feel like it elevated the competitive scene. There were more people traveling, excited to play. ATC numbers themselves were massive. That year, I want to say we probably had like 60 something teams that year. It was huge. And that's good for everybody, not just players in general, to be able to play games against more people they don't necessarily get to play against because people are traveling more. The level of competitive play grows, the level of sportsmanship grows, and the overall like skill level of our nation, our community of War Machine players in the US will grow when we have that kind of engagement. And so I'd really like to see some aspect of the selection process be integrated, where maybe we, on a year that we have 3 teams available for the US, we could have some kind of development team. And this is not something that everybody agrees with me on, but it's something that I would personally love to see, where when we have 3 teams, we have teams 1 and 2 are just dedicated. These are the 2 teams who are ascending to slay and bring home silver and gold. And then team 3 would be a team of players who are also slayers, but haven't risen to that level yet, where we think they're ready to go to WTC on teams 1 or 2, but players who we know have the potential, we know have the drive and the motivation, and with some mentorship and the ability to actually go and spend that year-long prep process and go through the event, could come back the next year or the year after that and be our future team 1 and team 2, bringing home the silver and gold. So that's a personal dream of mine. I don't know if it's going to work out, but it's something that we'll certainly talk about and consider as a committee, not necessarily just the idea of a development team, but how to build that level of engagement and mentorship and a path forward for players who aren't quite at the point where they're going to make any of the teams yet, but could in the following year. We want to make sure we do what we can to enable that path forward.
Yeah. I actually, and we're developing, by the way, a backlog of questions, mostly from Chris, but we have others in here too. There's 2 things in what you guys have said that really just jog some strong memories for me. And Zosha, you're like maybe the one other person who was around at the time for this. When I was first selected for WTC in 2017, it was a very different time. Essentially, selection committee picks 15 players, and then the players internally elect captains, and captains select teams out of those 15 players. So, I think that year, like Jay won the immediate, or no, it was Jake won the immediate captain runoff. He was captain team 1. I forget who was captain team 2. And then left behind were myself and 4 other guys who were all WTC first timers, accomplished players, but WTC first timers, also all primary Kador players at the time. That did not work out great for us at the team comp level. Also, it was like myself, Shirley, Andrews, McDermott. We're all trolley guys, and I think we made Jay Larson's life a living hell that year on purpose. So there's so many things, like different possible selection criteria and selection rubrics can turn out in a bunch of different ways, and you'll see unintended side effects sometimes. The other memory it jogged for me was was 2022. That was a wild pre-Mark IV announcement / immediately post-COVID year that got pretty wild. But I remember being on the team of Billy Nichols, along with Matt Zellis, Cody DeMunn. Oh God, who else was on that team? Eric Akers. That's 5 of us. Anyways, everybody except for me was a first timer. And I remember, reaching out to Billy and, helping him, like, okay, as somebody who's been there before, here's what it's going to take in terms of captain, like, here are all the responsibilities you're going to have, is there, and we did really well that year, by the way, as like everybody less me was first timers. So I think we got like 5th that year. It was an incredible year, both in terms of personal performance, being with guys who were really hungry to get after it. And like, many alumni of that team have gone on to be like serious, like top dog national level competitors. So I really see that. But like going forward, is it something that you want to see the player base get together and get under the WTC teams, especially veterans, even if they're not going, saying, hey, it's your first time, here's what needs to be handled?
Yes, I think what we want to do is part of my goals with this is to establish institutions and institutional knowledge that can be transferred easily, so that we have a support system in place that enables a softer landing for first timers. Because at some point, lots are going to age out in terms of our availability, our time, our careers are going to get too busy, our family lives are going to get too busy. And
I mean, also,
we have to make sure that we have
just realistically, like there's somebody coming up all the time. Like I've been on this circuit a long time, and I am constantly watching my ass for new guys who are on the way up. Like I said, on the Billy Nichols team, two of the guys are like circuit defining staples now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's some things that I think we can do and support at a community level and at a committee level that will better enable transitions as we move through, not only from an organizational standpoint, but just making sure that the players understand what the baseline expectations are, what is really needed for success, that we can transfer and enshrine that knowledge. That way we don't lose it. Because, as we've seen, the community comes and goes, additions to those things change, but War Machine players are War Machine players are War Machine players. But we need to, I think, better foster that communication and build out our ability to conserve that knowledge and transfer that knowledge so that people have softer landings and that we continue the success that the U.S. has had, particularly over the last few years, and we can sustain that long term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that for the last many years, the people who have been at the top of their competitive game and leading teams and going to the WTC haven't been silverback gorillas just beating up every new rival that comes into town. It's been a very supportive, competitive community. There's been so much mentorship, so much knowledge being transferred informally and support being given informally that I don't think we've ever had an issue with that. But we know that there can always come a time where, for whatever reason, those players aren't available and a rough transition could happen. So one goal that we also have is to set up some kind of formalized mentorship program and support program to link the more experienced players with less experienced players, not just going to WTC, but just in general in the community. And this is a great idea that has been brought up and discussed so far that we'd love to discuss more. I think Zosha originally had the idea, like so many good ideas, was to have like an open dinner to sit with WTC players and just chat with them and ask them questions, which again is a thing that we do all the time, but not everybody knows that. A lot of people don't realize that they can just walk up to any one of us, maybe not necessarily poke us in the chest, but just walk up and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. Can I talk to you about War Machine? And I don't know very many players who wouldn't immediately smile and say, why, yes, of course you may. I'd love to talk War Machine with you. But having some kind of official event, say like 2 or 3 times a year at a convention where we advertise and say, hey, on this day at this time, after everybody's done playing games, we're all going to go to this brew pub and we're going to have drinks and dinner, and please do come. We'd love to have you there. These various players are going to be there and want to answer your questions and chat with you about War Machine stuff, WTC, what their favorite car is, what kind of tree they like, whether they prefer birds or cats, whatever, right? Like you could ask whatever questions you want. But just having something like that.
The price of admission is just being forced to sit through my explanation of what post-rational philosophy is.
Yes, the
No, we did.
professor
We
at
did
some
two of
point will
those. We
lecture
did two
you.
of those at Vegas. I mean,
We did.
Essentially.
The key is just to have enough beer that you can listen to Professor Cosma talk about philosophy on a graduate academic level and just have another conversation with somebody else at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Evan, did you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I think to Zosha's point, there is a lot to be said about intentionality. And I think that is one big thing that we've all really agreed on is being very intentional this year and making a point to be clear on different ways to get into different paths that you can take to get into WTC, whether that's being an alternate for a team or if the development team comes to be the development team being an option, having a player pack that's like very clear as to what different roads there are, what conventions you can go to. So there's a lot of different ways that we're thinking through how to be more intentional with the paths that you can get to WTC.
Right. Yeah, I love that because that's that's almost it's not just transparency, it's like an inside out approach. Like, hey, here's our criteria. Here's the considerations that went into building the charter and building our selection criteria. And these are going to be up for review next year, but like here it is. Here's the entire show, and we're going to connect you with community resources to make it happen.
Can I jump in real quick, Alex?
Yeah,
I just want to
please.
build on that. The real driving force behind the idea of, really speaking to intention and being clear is the fact that, let's just name it, right? Like a lot of us have heard the term cool kids club, old boys club, and we're trying to break that down. We want WTC. There's a way to find a balance between having very competitive teams and in wanting to send good, prepared and well-playing teams, but also being inclusive. Like they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I'm excited for the interim committee with feedback from the rest of the community to really just open up that conversation and just say it out loud. Like, this is what we're trying to build something that is going to work for everybody, that's considering everybody, not just the people who can podium at least 5 conventions a year, but also the people who, understand the concept of good sportsmanship and mentorship and, performing well, again, at and away from the table. But yeah, so that intentionality is really just born from the idea that we don't want the cool kids club. And I don't think that there was ever really intentionally a cool kids club, but it was just kind of more veteran players being like, hey, I figured out how to get here. You should be able to figure it out too. And it's not necessarily malicious. It's just kind of absent-minded and just not really, in that direction.
And just to build on that, and and we have some stats. So let the stat guy talk stats for a second. We actually were talking about this internally, and we went back and looked at the numbers. The past 5 years, there have been 35 unique players. There have been 45 unique players total. 10 of those were alternate, or 9 of those were alternates. Or 9 or 10 of those were alternates. But we've had 35 unique players the last 5 years go to the WTC, which I'm thinking for many people is going to be higher than they thought. Because I know for me, it was higher than I thought. The joy of doing it every year is that you continue to see the names that are performing well. But the names that are performing well are kind of our longer term players that are there. But there's actually been a lot of fresh faces introduced the past 5 years at WTC, and I think that's something that we need to highlight and communicate better. And I think as we continue on, one of the themes as well with intentionality is that we become more efficient and effective communicators of this information.
Right. Yeah, man. Well, that's a really great point. Is that the faces are shifting, and I think there's a perception that it never changes. One of the things I love from this discussion is the idea of proactive mentorship. And like, full disclosure, I'm throwing my hat in the ring for the World Team Championship this year, whether I make it or not. If there is a program, either for first-time players or for people who applied that are aspiring, don't get selected and want to make it the coming year. Like, if you guys need mentors, I'm there, whether I'm selected or not. Riffing on another theme from this, and I have a big backlog of chat to get caught up on, but we have Mr. G Zach. Let's say you were chosen as a captain purely hypothetically and your head explodes. How many points is exploding worth? And I think, more on point, what is the role of alternates, and, how much consideration is there for the role of some, like being the man on the spot to come in and replace somebody whose head may have hypothetically exploded?
I can speak on this as from Team 2. Dan, out Spinball out there in the chat, Tummy Bunny for life, he was our alternate that came with us. And what I will say before this was Andy and my first year attending, the time commitment, aside from the financial thing that behemoth that the WTC is and traveling, and it's not just going to Europe, right? It's traveling across the country. I think there was at one point this summer, Andy and I were traveling 5 weekends in a row, to include getting on a plane and going to a steamroller or some sort of weekend event. So it's a huge commitment. It almost felt like a full-time job. And I was feeling that on the channel side of it, like, to film battle reports was really difficult because all my free time wasn't work, balancing family. It was playing games on in person, playing games on War Table, talking about the game, meeting with the team. So there's a huge commitment outside of it, depending on how serious you and your team are taking this thing. So to talk about the alternate, like Dan, he traveled across the country with us and across the Atlantic with us, just to cover down in case one of us was unable to attend an event. So Boker, for example, this year, we had our whole team. Chris couldn't attend, and Dan was able to cover down and do that. It's to cover down and play Chris's army to help keep the integrity of our team composition for practice. I guess what I'm just trying to say is it was a lot. It was a big responsibility, a lot of time. I loved every minute of it, being able to travel with my life partner. Andy was great, and hanging out with my team and being able to share that experience with these incredible people, and not just Team 2, but working with Team 1 and Team 3. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on the mentorship and coachability. Also, as a player, you need to be open to that as well, to that mentorship and coaching. Have that hard conversation. I am so thankful for those the time that other players, even outside of my team, who pulled me aside and talked to me to help address, the good and the bad. You have to be able to take that and use that constructively and moving forward, and not feel like you're being attacked. So the mentorship and coaching kind of goes both ways. You have to be open to that discussion as well.
And if I could chime in here as well, Alex, to build on that.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So with alternates specifically, I remember a time where it was a given that every team would pick an alternate, and that alternate would travel with them to Europe. And you're asking a lot from that alternate. And I'd like to see us return to that time for 2 reasons. One, or I guess 3 reasons really. One, it's really important to have that backup in case the worst happens and somebody can't go. That's the obvious reason. But the other 2 reasons are less obvious and possibly more important. Having that 6th player prepare with the team, dojo with the team, support the team emotionally, with advice, with practice throughout the year, be a part of your little confidential pod is so beneficial. Any additional number that you can grow that nuclear team of people who are equally as committed as you are is so helpful to the team. And being able to add an alternate, I think, adds so much value. And 2, the alternates themselves, even though they're committing just as much time and effort as the 5 players, without getting to probably not going to be able to play in the main event, they are getting a huge benefit themselves by being a part of that process throughout the year with the team. Their personal growth every time I've talked to an alternate or worked with an alternate has been so huge in those years. I remember the year that Eric Eickerman, one of my locals, who at this point
I was about to mention that, and we picked up our like unofficial 7th teammate and Matt Zellis partway through the year, who was just like right there with us at every event. Like, but Ike was crucial to that team.
And then Ike himself would tell you that the year he spent as an alternate is probably the most growth that he made in terms of volume from one point to another point as a competitive player was due to that process of being an alternate and working with the team and discussing all of these different matchups at such a high level in so many different contexts and playing practice games with us and traveling more to go to more conventions because he's an alternate. And then even just the process of going to Europe and playing in a completely different meta in solo masters, like all of that, the entire process is so beneficial to an individual player. And it provides that that mentorship that we were talking about in a very clearly formalized manner because you're working with the team, right? And I would love to see that return where we have players who want to be an alternate and they get assigned to a team and the team will welcome them and they will work together. And then the next year when they apply to the WTC, they can say, I was an alternate last year. I worked with this team this entire time. I learned so much. I went and played in solo masters. And not only does that show that they have the work ethic, which I think is critical for anybody who is picked for a team, not only does it show that they have the social and financial stability, which unfortunately are absolute requirements to be picked for a team if you're going to be relied upon to go to Europe. It also shows that they have made an incredible amount of growth because like I said, we know that if you spend a year going through that process, there's no way that you come out the other side of it without being far stronger than you were before.
Right. And they're also familiar with a full prep cycle. There is no aspect of the WTC that is a mystery to them. The first time I went, I was elected Team 3 captain. I had no idea what was coming. But somebody who's an alternate, even if they just spend the weekend playing in solo masters and like crush it, which they do, this is somebody who, if they make the big time and nobody has, a Tanya Harding moment, this is somebody who is all but a WTC veteran. This is somebody who is already captain material.
Yeah, and just to add to it, to speak to Dan's journey because he's local to me. He's the guy that runs the bulk of our events. Shout out to Dan, you're fantastic. Part of Dan's requirement and part of what Dan took on was not only playing his faction incredibly well, he had to learn all 5 of the other factions that are going to be going, learning those pairings and understanding what their role was on the team, and be able to replicate that play at a very high level. So when you're an alternate, you have some tremendous shoes to fill potentially, and you also can provide some tremendous insight into how your team is thinking about matchups, if they're thinking about them the right way, because you're an additional player looking at all of these list pairings. And sometimes a second set of eyes is the most valuable thing you can have as you walk through your rubric. So I think alternate is definitely something that we should mandate, at least highly encourage.
Yeah. So I have this outline divided into a couple of segments, and I feel like we're pushing on the big one that I really want to drive to, our rare developing player segment. So you want to go to the WTC, but I do have a Mr. Chris Gunther backlog that we're gonna shoot through before we really drive at, what is the committee, looking for and what's the road there. So after players have applied for the full committee, how will they be voted for or selected? Is this still on the docket for you guys for the 18th, or do we have a preview we can give at this point?
That is still to be discussed.
Okay. Yeah,
I
and
can
I
expand on that a little bit more too.
oh
if you
yeah,
want.
please go ahead, Zoe.
So the charter outlines how to select the full committee should there ever be a point at the end of the calendar year where it is projected for there to be less than 3 players on the full committee. So there is a process outlined in the charter on how to do that. The caveat is that because this is all new, the interim committee will vote on that charter. So while it is technically, yes, up for debate, the preliminary idea is outlined in the charter.
As a personal question, how many years has it been when the when the number of players on the committee has been 1?
Many. I'll just leave it at that. It's been many.
Okay. Let's see. For interim committee, if any of you make it onto the first newly formed committee, can you promise that bunnies will be put on jerseys?
No, Chris, we
No.
can't promise that. Erica might.
No.
I won't.
This is just as a behind the scenes peek, and I'm sure like this is, Zosha, for you, one of your highest blood pressure moments of all year is getting the teams to agree on team theming, naming, and jersey design every year.
Every year I suggest
Every
red,
year
white,
I've
and
gone,
blue.
I've watched it be a fight, other
Yep.
than the one year where it was like, no, you guys are red, white, and blue. And then per year was like, yeah, but we're team Texas. Like, so we're red, white, and Texas now?
Yeah, every year we suggest red, white, and blue, and every year there is at least a 6-week argument over what the theme will be. Because first you have to narrow it down to the categories. So, do you do cryptids? Do you do, random animals, whatever it is? So you have to get the category, and then after you get the category, then it's, well, what thing within the category do you do? And then after you get the thing within the category, then how do we do the art? And it is just I love all of you, every single one of you that's listening. But I swear to God, if we ever have the purge, anybody who I've ever had to deal with on art design and team name, I am slapping you. just one slap per person. Just for
the year we went as endangered species,
yes.
My team was this close to being Team Muddy Rock Snail.
See, this
Now I will say we can simplify this entire process by saying if you would like to sponsor a team, you can name it whatever you want. We will tell you what that
Oh my God,
it's
a fundraising goal. Oh no.
These are the powers we have as a nonprofit now. So
I have the dubious honor of being a captain the year that we had 5 teams, 5 different captains, 25 different players plus alternates. And I was the idiot that decided, you know what, somebody has to take the lead on it. I guess I'll take the lead on jersey design. Worst thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, my husband
I don't think it's
made
ever
that
going to be that
mistake
bad
this year.
again.
It's stressful, right? It's so weird. Out of everything that goes into WTC, the fact that you're playing against, all these different international teams, you're playing in Europe, you have to travel from the US across the ocean with all of your models. Your issue isn't TSA. Your issue isn't, the travel coordination or anything. It's the team name and the art. Like that's where all the stress is. And it's that was Jake agreeing that, it sucks.
Yeah. Every single captain
funny.
ever
has
all agreed. Has all agreed it is the worst part of being a captain is agreeing on team themes and jerseys.
Yeah, that's like for people who've never peeked behind the curtain, that's like it's the most like blood in the water, like knives out fight that there is about American WTC teams all year. It's preposterous. Oh man. All right. So we got we got some catch up to do here. But this is all going to be sort of around the theme from Garrett Stacy here. What's the best way to make it onto a team? Or if I keep scrolling down, we've got Mr. Tark Mailer, Mr. Mark Taylor from the Invitational here. I've thought of getting onto a WTC team, but I've never applied, let alone attended. What are some things you wish you would have known before your first year, both as an applicant and as an attendee? And then we've got more down here. Mr. JRV, would you say it's better to be a first timer being an alternate? Wait, would you say it's better to be a first timer being a alternate? That way they get the experience. So we have a number of questions, and I think this is, what's forefront in a lot of people's minds, because like Zosha, something you mentioned earlier is, what, and Erica and Evan, you guys too, is the goal is not to have this be, exclusionary. The fact of the matter is, if we take a maximalist case, USA does well, there are enough spots, we get 32 teams, USA is 3 of them. That means 15 players on USA teams and 3 alternates. So the fact of the matter is, this is going to be an exclusive event, but one of the major goals is, because there's less than half the Americans than there are at, say, the Iron Gauntlet Invitational, but we don't want it to be exclusionary, and that's a major organizational goal, that it not live that way for the community. Joe, thank you very much for the distinct players data on that over the last few years. But I think a lot of people are entranced by the magic of this event, and that it does build a ton of hype for our community. It builds people up, both to be selected for it and to prepare for it. So yeah, talk to me about, so you want to go to the WTC, what's that process look like? And
So
all
again,
this, by the way, in full acknowledgement that the official selection criteria are being decided later this month.
Yeah, so official selection criteria is being decided later. However, if you look at 2025, the most important thing you can do is, 1, apply. Write your resume out and apply, go through the process. And and from there, the other things are, be prepared to play more games than you have ever played before. Be prepared to think about armies deeper than you ever thought about armies before. Be prepared to give pretty honest feedback. That's all part of the preparatory cycle. And while I have not gone to the WTC, I have been part of WTC prep for several players for several years. So there is a huge commitment, and Brandon and Erica can speak to this directly, and Evan can speak to this as somebody that has, Evan and Zosha can both speak to this, to the amount that Jake and Chris have had over the years to do this event, and they've had to support. So there's a lot that goes into it. So you don't do it lightly, but I do suggest you apply.
Yeah, and Evan and I can both speak on not just through the eyes of our husbands, but also just as organizers and individual people.
Perfect.
But I do think a lot of Brandon and Erica's insight here would be really valuable, since you guys have attended, and Erica, last year was your first year. So I think you guys have a lot of valuable insight into this.
Erica, if you want to jump in first.
Sure. So I can speak on behalf as the newbie coming in. What I think, I don't want to say help, but what's good as a player is having the opportunity to go to so many events that aren't just in my backyard. Now, Andy and I are fortunate. We live in the Northeast, which is like you could drive 100 miles in any direction on a weekend and find a steamroller with 20 people at it. We live in a very vibrant area, but getting out to the conventions, the big 5-man events, the weekend events, things like, shout out to the Siege Invitational. That is a fantastic event run by the Minority Report guys. Being known as, again, we talk about player integrity, being clean, a good communicator, not tilting at the table, basic stuff like clock discipline, widget discipline, proxying. I'll tell you this year, what I felt like I leveled up a lot as a player is I used to be bad at picking up my model and moving it and not putting out proxies and measuring stuff and being much more exact. So things like that. And what we found is when you play cleaner, your opponent, other people that you play with, will it kind of holds. You want to hold yourself to the same standard of what you want to have at the table. Has kind of been my thought process for that. Playing clean and having integrity is a huge that's a big value for me. And I think it was on the Battle True podcast that we did on YouTube a few weeks back with Riker. It was important for me as an individual player to set realistic goals for myself. And by realistic, things that, I can manage or I had more control of. So for me, my 4 competitive goals for the WTC was playing clean, kind of already talked about that already, not clocking, not getting my caster killed, and ending with a personal positive record. So that was important for me to be able to hit those benchmarks as a player competitively. And even going to team events this year, those were the same goals I had set for myself.
Yeah, that's a great one, by the way, because I think by the time I made a WTC team in 2017, and at the time there were strict eligibility requirements, like it had to be War Machine Weekend Invitational or Iron Gauntlet Circuit. I think I had only ever won my first qualified event like within 2 months of applying. But like at the time, like I go to LVO and I get matched up against Tom Guan, who I have never beaten. But he's like, oh god damn it, it's Cosma. Like you always give me a hard time. Being somebody that, like, if you're in your head about like, oh, but I haven't won X and Y and Z, it's like, if you're known to be somebody who can hang with the best of them, and like, Mr. Mark Taylor, I'm looking at somebody like you, like you're in that appropriate category. You know what I mean? But yeah, there's so much by the experience. Erica, would you, as somebody who's thinking about this, having been through it the first time, would you recommend people, genuinely investigating the cleanliness of their play and their their personal reputation, and asking around about references? Is that something you think would be, like illuminating, or like a valuable mirror for somebody who's on the fence about applying?
I think so. Again, we talk. Oh no, Percy. Sorry, my cat was on my power thing.
The new cat's being a terrorist.
Yeah, sorry.
We saw him in the pre-stream.
Yeah,
he had mischief in his eyes.
Yeah. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Just people going through that process of like examining their own reputation for play, and can they hang with the top competitors? Would you recommend people go through the, like, hey, will you be my reference, as a mirror to find out where they live in the esteem of their broader community?
I would say so, because we talked a little bit about the coachability and mentorship, how that's important. So being able to take that positive and negative feedback, and even if you don't get the opportunity to really travel a lot because of geographical barriers, there are things like the NOL that Joe hosts on the Delaware War Machine Tried and True server every month. Like, that's a league that gets anywhere between 40 or more people from all across the US and internationally now, which is a great way to also get those connections and that feedback and that practice. I can't tell you how valuable the NOL was for me as not just a player going to the WTC, but just like as a player and student of this game, just how valuable that practice and just everything was. The conversations, the games, everything was great.
Yeah. Yeah, Evan, any thoughts from you on watching first timers and say they want to go to the WTC? What would you say for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak more from like an organizational perspective.
Because that's really crucial, because that's like people see the games they play and they see the game resumes. They don't necessarily know how a people organizer is looking at this. So yeah, fire away, please.
I mean, a big one, and this is just right off the bat, like, you have to be able to travel to WTC. You have to be able to travel throughout the year, and be able to have the financial capability to cover that cost. It is a real cost, not just in your time and effort, but like financially. So that is one big thing to really consider if you're thinking about applying.
Yeah, you need to have a realistic conversation with yourself about it.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, one of the things the WTC committee is hoping to do is fundraise, but that's not a guarantee. And so you do have to take into consideration that cost for Europe and traveling throughout the year to practice. I'd also say the criteria, once the criteria is posted, read it thoroughly, read it 2, 3, 4 times, make sure you're covering your bases. That'll really help just in making sure that you're getting everything that you can out of it and that you're putting everything that you can into your resume. And then the other big factor is, attending events. The camaraderie between this year in particular, I thought had really great camaraderie across all 3 teams. And I think a lot of that came down to they were traveling together, they were practicing together, both in person and then also on War Table. And that camaraderie, I think, made a huge difference. So being able to travel and attend events throughout the year will leaps and bounds help.
Yeah, and that's also like low key one of the great things about new players being on being on a USA WTC team, and new players really aspiring to be there, is it drives national interest. Like when I was on I think I started in the chats to highlight. We had a Mr. Cody DeMunn in here, just on the challenges and the logistics, because it is a lot. But having
Alex,
having. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to build on what Evan was saying. Just 2 more things.
No, yeah.
Your original question.
You're other like master of human organization. So please.
No. So just in regards to examining your individual play, you had mentioned something about being able to hang with the top players. 2 things: building on the camaraderie that Evan was talking about. It was great this year. It was, there was definitely a different feeling, a lot more togetherness. And I think that the idea of having this committee also gives the feeling that not that we're sending 3 individual teams who are siloed and work separately, but 3 teams who are united under one committee and everybody is working together. So we have Team USA, not 3 teams from USA, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like we have, and everybody practiced together, whether or not they were on the same team. There was a lot of just conversation, and it was great. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention in regards to being able to hang with the top players, it's not just about being able to read your cards and being able to regurgitate verbatim what is written in War Room. It's about the actual fluency with the game, understanding the game at a very fluent and intimate level. And that's one thing that I've always said about Jake as a player. And I think it's one of the things that really sets him apart as a top player and being good at his craft, is that he understands the faction because he's played it since the dawn of time. But he understood Legion on a very intimate and fluent level. And I think that being able to understand your faction in that way really helps set you apart. And, like, as you said, hang with the top players. But that's all I wanted to add in.
In the words of Mr. Tark Mailer, you expect nerds to read?
Alex,
but yeah, you will be expected to read. And like, just a real quick, like, personal anecdote. I got a call from Justin a week before he was gonna, or no, I think it was a couple of days before he got on his play. Like, okay, we're gonna talk about my Brine Bloods matchups. Because Justin's personal fluency on Infernals was really high going into this year. He didn't wind up playing Brine Bloods, so it didn't matter. But, like, I was happy to get a call from my old friend and say, let's take 90 minutes and talk about what your avenues of play are into literally every Brine Bloods matchup. And, it's that kind of takes a village. It's that kind of, being willing to learn and read, and like, really, my team is counting on me. I want to make sure my evaluations are dialed in. Brandon, please go ahead.
Yeah. So this idea of, I am a player who's, coming into my competitive own, and I want to take it to that next level and get on a WTC team in the next 1 to 3 years. What do I do? Erica, Evan, everyone has sort of touched on it, but the fundamental thing, the number one priority to my mind, has never changed. Travel and play at events. As many events as you can go to in different places besides your home meta, travel to them, play in those events. It's going to accomplish a number of things all at the same time. One, you'll get vastly better at the game by traveling and playing in different places. Two, you'll get better at traveling to play War Machine, which is a necessary skill to go to the WTC. Three, you will meet so many amazing people that will not only be resources for you in the game of War Machine, but might become friends for life. And a very brief aside, some of my best friends to this day, like you, Alex, I met playing War Machine, and our friendships then transcended War Machine. There was a period of time where for a couple of years I wasn't playing. We were still friends. We still met up. We still talked. We still hung out. We were still interested in each other's lives.
No, yeah,
and now we're playing War Machine again.
We played it like a couple of Kingdom Cons, and then like one, I think it was a Kingdom Con or something like that. Maybe it was like a local qualifier. You invited me down to your house, and like we had some of the best conversations in our lives, like just staying up way later than we should have been realistically before playing War Machine. Just talking about life and philosophy and like Miyamoto Musashi. It's been a real roller coaster. Sorry. I just had to gush on that because it is transformative. Like some of the people I've met through this game have changed my life.
Absolutely. And so the number one best thing you can still do is travel to play War Machine. With the aim specifically to make it onto WTC teams, I'd say try to prioritize events that are Iron Gauntlet qualifiers and events that are 5-man team tournaments, because those are the things that are going to, whether it's objective criteria or it's a resume review, those are the things that have national recognition and are going to give you the most credit, sort of universally across all selections. The next thing you can, and on that point, specifically in post-COVID, traveling to play War Machine has been supplemented by War Table and the abundance of very robust and supportive collaborative discords. At this point, I would say travel and play War Machine, and for the love of God, play on War Table. I know a lot of people don't like War Table, and there are a lot of players who are good players but don't use War Table because it's not the same as playing in person and they don't enjoy it. I get that. But it is such a powerful tool to not only give you practice beyond what you could get in person, but to give you practice against people that you wouldn't otherwise get to play against. And that benefit you get from traveling and encountering these players in different metas and playing with them, you can do that on War Table. And you can also play against players in other countries, in Europe, in Canada, in Australia, wherever, right? In Asia and South America. You can play against people all over the world and just really compound that extra learning and development that you get. So travel and play on War Table. Dave, specifically, War Table is just the platform
nobody
that
plays on
everybody uses.
TTS. War Table is a bespoke War Machine simulator.
Yeah, but fundamentally, a lot of WTC prep happens on a virtual game platform like War Table because it's so accessible. So do those two things for your own personal development as a player in terms of getting strong. Because if you want to go to WTC, you have to get strong. Like just at ground level, if you don't get strong, you won't go. There's more to it than that, but that's your first goal. And those are the two biggest things that you can do. Outside of playing the games, take the time to talk to people. And I mean this very broadly. Talk to the people in your local meta about the games that they're playing, about the factions they're playing, about how they feel about different matchups, about your matchups. Talk to people that you meet on War Table when you travel to events and you meet new people, or you play against somebody and you thought they were a good player or they were a cool person or both. Ask them if they have Discord or Facebook or whatever, and if you can chat with them later. 9 times out of 10, the person's going to say, yeah, absolutely. Here's my info. Let's chat. Mm-hmm. And then talk to them about the game that you played, about the matchup between the two of you, about anything else that you think you might benefit that you could ask a question. And if they might ask you questions and for advice too, and just have that conversation and dialogue. And then also when you are playing a faction or you have some issue or problem that you're trying to work through, and you think, I don't really know anybody who has the knowledge that can help me with this, reach out either broadly, ask in one of the public discords, does anybody know a really good player who plays X faction or who could help me with this? Or if you know somebody who knows somebody, you can reach out and say, hey, does anybody know Alex Cosma who might put me in touch with them? I got a question that I think he'd be really good at answering. And again, 9 times out of 10, that person somebody's going to raise their hand and say, yeah, I know Alex. Yeah. Let me do a group DM with you right now and bring you in and say, hey, Alex, this guy wants to ask you about this. And 9 times out of 10, Alex or whoever it is going to say, hell yeah, dude, let's chat about it. And you're going to form another relationship that you can lean on to make yourself stronger as a player. And in doing all of this, you have the added benefit of letting other people learn about you as a player and as a person. And when it comes time to form teams for WTC, regardless of what the criteria end up being in any given year, people are going to want to know about you as a player and a person if they want you to be on their team.
Yeah.
And it's just a reality of being a human in a social environment is people have to know who you are, not just that you exist, but what kind of person you are and what kind of player you are. And the best way that you can do that is by playing with people and talking with people and getting to know them. And this is a very open community in general. And all you have to do, as silly as it sounds, is reach out and say hello. So travel, play games, use War Table, say hello and talk to people. And then beyond that, I guess the last thing I would add is when you're playing your games, I guess 2 more things to add. When you're playing your games, don't focus solely on winning. Focus on learning.
Yeah.
When you make that mental shift from, I want to win this event to, of course I want to win this event, but I want to walk away from this event feeling like I learned something, like I'm stronger. Whether it's just I'm now faster with my army, I'm more proficient with it, or whether you learn something on a fundamental level that helps you level up as a player mechanically or something else. make your primary goal for the vast majority of your games to learn, not just to win. And then the last thing would be, and I think somebody talked about this earlier. One of the questions was, should you ask people? I think you asked, should you ask people what your reputation is or how they feel about you? I'm going to call on Eric Eicherman again here, because I think he is just sort of the perfect paradigm for a lot of this development process, because he started off as just the kind of guy who only played in local tournaments. And now he's somebody who in his own right is in that like high echelon of competitive players that's traveling the nation and taking names and getting noticed. And one of the things I really liked that he did, and still does on a regular basis, is he'll periodically come to me and say, hey, Brandon, what do I need to do right now at the level that I'm at to take it up another notch? What do I need to do from where I am right now to get to the next level? And I don't always have an immediate answer for him. It's not like we're playing a video game and it's like, to get to this next stage, you have to find this key, right? But what that does is I will think on the question, and the two of us will have a conversation about what he's doing well, where he's struggling, and try to identify, because I know him, because we're friends and we talk all the time, we play all the time. We will work together to try to identify what we think the next thing he could do, or what we think would be the good next thing he could do to get to that next level. And just asking the question, hey, Alex, I'm struggling with this, or I'm struggling to move beyond X and 1 at tournaments. I want to win events. What do you think I need to do? And just have that conversation and be open to the feedback. Those are all of those things together. I think as a player who wants to take it to the next level, just do those. And whether you end up going to the WTC or not, you're going to find that you are such a better player after a year of doing that, and that you have so many more friends, and your War Machine life is so much more enriched as a result, that it's worth it regardless of whether you end up traveling to Europe or not.
So I have a great question from JRV here for Joe. And I also want to give Joe a crack at this question for, so what do you do when you want to go to the WTC? But I just want to come in on this as on a personal note, just to riff on what Brandon was saying. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was not ready the first time I was picked, or like, I think I had posted the results, but was I ready to be captain? Probably not year one. But going to this kind of event does change you. One, it reawakens an interest and enthusiasm for the game, and two, like, after that first year, as down on myself as I was from my own personal performance, I knew what it took to manifest the kind of personal performance to get selected, and it was easy as peas for me to just go to town on that over and over again. The thing that really changed was the kinds of conversations I had around the community about the WTC. They weren't the same kind of conversations I used to have. And, Brandon, I think we talked about this when we were both in Vancouver, is, I mentioned to you, like, when I'm going to events now, if I know somebody who, like, if I play against or am watching a game by somebody in the region I'm traveling to who really impresses me, or that I've seen turn up at events and really impresses me, both in caliber of play, inquisitiveness about their own improvement, like just mentality about the game, and that hunger, I'll find somebody in their community and say, like, talk to me about X, I want to know about this person, and especially if it's somebody who's been to the WTC before, it's like, how much do you think this person needs to get there? Because maybe they don't recognize it as possible for themselves yet, but this is somebody I'd really like to see hold the USA banner sometime soon. How can I help develop them? And, what can I suggest they do over the coming year. And even if they get picked now, what are they going to take to be ready in time? And I've had conversations about people that I've met on the circuit this year, you know, that I've kicked around the name with multiple sources, and it's like, it wouldn't take much for them to be ready. Like they're not ready now in the same way I was not ready for my first year. But if they have a village up under them supporting them and making them be ready, yeah, they'll be ready. So that's a personal digression, and just how participating in this international community changes your attitude. Like, I didn't go this year. I knew I couldn't go this year. I might not go this coming year, but I want to be involved in the careers of those who want this for themselves. But Joe, I want to talk to you as somebody who's been deeply involved in this community, particularly in statistics. We have a great question here from JRV. So somebody says they want to go to the WTC. What's your picture on what that's going to take?
Again, it's a massive commitment in time and energy and travel. All of those things.
I'm just going to intervene here and like demystify it and say, okay, so you're going to Europe. You're having probably about a week's vacation before the WTC because you're in Europe.
Yes.
And you're going to a full competitive year. Like, I will just pin a rough number on it and just say straight up, expect your competitive year to cost you about $10,000 or more.
Yes.
I do want to be disclosive about that number.
Yes, that's the commitment you're putting in between the WTC, the surrounding pieces, and all of the competitive build-up to it. Because you're doing the full circuit as much as you can. You're getting together with your team as much as you can, and your team may be in very desperate places. Behind the scenes
desperate,
on
even.
Yes, desperate or disparate.
I had one teammate where I essentially bankrolled the tail end of their competitive year just because I knew they were up to scratch and I needed them to make it.
Yep. So you have that, and again, we want good performance, but it's also about being a good teammate, being somebody that people can work with, that you have a good ability to communicate and work through differences. Because again, teams have ups and downs. You need to have very candid conversations as a team and be honest with each other, because the more honest you can be as a team, the better that team is going to perform. And it may be, hey, I know that you really like playing X, but that is not where the competitive meta is right now. And we really need to start looking here. And if your play style indicates that you really should be playing that other thing, you have to be able to articulate back with supportive data why you should be doing the other way. Why you want to go this particular route. And then, part of it is execute and perform. From that standpoint, again, there are many roads into WTC. What we want to try to do from a committee standpoint is demystify that as much as possible, support the selection process that we end up coming up with, and make sure that everyone understands it at a community level. So I think it's imperative, once the criterion is out, that maybe we come to a forum like this again and talk through it. And that way everyone understands exactly what they're getting into, exactly where what the expectations are, and those type of things. I think it's very good to have clear communication from the committee at an interim level, and then at a long-term level. I think the more that we can communicate with the community, I think that just strengthens the community as a whole. And additionally, if you give people a clear path, they're going to follow it. War Machine players love us some rules, regulations, and pathing. So I think giving that in a clear manner is critical.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's great. Oh man. Yeah, yeah. Making people aware and saying, "Hey, here's what we've got this year. Let's go for it and let's go for it next year too." I think that's a big deal. Um
100%, and I think it can't be understated. I think the need for the support of the community from a development standpoint, not just for WTC players, but just players in general.
mhm.
We it is no secret that Mark II to Mark III was a hard transition point in the game, and it was a transition point where we lost more people than we gained. Mark IV has been a growing addition.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that we should do and learn from the experience of Mark II to III and III to IV is that we can, as a community, better support our up and comers, both people just getting into the game and people trying to take the next steps from a competitive side and from a game side. I think we really have an opportunity to grow the game and continue to grow the game and ensure that the community is healthy in those ways. And I think development as a theme is probably something that I will be rallying for on the interim committee and beyond, just in my own community. So
Yeah. So I want to come back to that because that's sort of a sub corollary of, so you want to go to the WTC is, so your best friend tells you he's going to the WTC or has that goal for himself. That's a wild change, but just real quick. So JRV 45 asked, does Joseph have the stats for which region was most prevalent on the WTC USA team? So I'm gonna arrest you before you get excited, but my understanding is historically, and this is sort of a dual Zosha and Joe question, is that historically USA WTC teams have had at least somewhat of a region bias, that there was a consideration for selection that not just, oh, the captain and his 4 closest friends, which tend to be region locked, be represented, and we just do that 3 times, but that the country as a whole be represented, and there's interest in regions. How much is that's entered into the committee's consideration in the past, and I guess on an evidential layer, how much of that has showed up in the data?
So just speaking to the data for last year, I will challenge it slightly. And I've had the same perception as well. And then we went back and looked at the data. Team 3 was a team that was primarily constructed. It was Jeff's selection. Unfortunately, Jeff had the health issues, and he's thankfully recovering.
Full-on head explosion.
And thankfully, he's recovering well. And
he's
Sean
got a whole new head.
Yeah, he's got a whole new head, Mr. Rovato.
He has lot more than a whole new head. Sorry, he's got a whole new shoulder, a whole new hip. He's a whole new body at this point.
He's half robot, and we love him. But Sean took that team, and that team was mostly comprised of New York players, and then also Riker, who's an East Coast player out in Connecticut. So that was truly a full continental team. We had representation from all the way out in Washington State, along with New York State and Connecticut. So, we were coast to coast with that one team. Additionally, we had similarities on Team 1. That team was essentially coast to coast. Brandon is a West Coaster in beautiful San Diego. And, you have JVM out there in frozen Massachusetts. So, again, you were coast to coast there. And you had folks all the way in between. And again, gun bunnies, you had Virginia, you had Delaware represented, and you had Michigan, as well as Missouri. So you had the central part of the country. So I would say from a go forward standpoint, I think that the regionality has been eliminated to a point. We want to ensure that we don't go back to a regionalized system. The beautiful thing is, because the internet now exists in the form that it does, and it didn't always exist in this form with this level of communication and availability for people to practice with. I think the ubiquity of Wartable has helped with this a lot. The ubiquity of Discords as sort of the main means of gathering. They've kind of replaced they kind of are a supplement to our gaming stores in the US or gaming clubs elsewhere. And they allow us to no longer be region locked. I mean, even podcasts and YouTube channels like this allow us a level of communication that we just didn't have in the past. And I think we're going to be leveraging those tools more and more, and continuing to strive to have, our giant USA team with all of the teams underneath it, singing in one voice and working together and building the best teams that we can, regardless of where these players may be located, as long as they're, eligible and within the US. So.
Agreed. And in the past, there was a lot about it. I feel like the separate regions on teams was pushed a little bit more, because it also gave the players on each team the opportunity to be able to practice together, to get together, maybe once a month or once every other month or something like that. So geographically, it made sense for them to be closer in region to each other. But with the invent and, just kind of Wartable taking off and being the go-to online space for players to be able to get in good games, that regionality has definitely broken down.
I think post-COVID, it is more or less completely eroded, with the caveat that there are pockets of players who, there are pockets where there are a cluster of very strong players and they sometimes end up on the same team. But the idea that there's any preference for grouping teams by regionality is completely eroded, I think, post-COVID. And even before then, I think it was largely Team 3 that was often a regionalized team, from my experience. Teams 1 and 2 were usually some mix of players who were just, these are the best 5 to 10 players. And then Team 3 was, I don't want to say an informalized version of the development team idea, but for a variety of reasons, it was more likely to be a captain who was going to pick 4 strong players from their region, either because it was the ATC path to victory, or because it was a year where, there weren't necessarily more than 10 to 15 really strong players, and so Team 3 became regionalized. But at this point, I think it's very much like you said. There's been a globalization of War Machine. Everybody can practice with everybody, and you should be, like I was saying before.
Yeah.
So there's no need for that. And also, I'm wearing, I think, the last year that we had regionalized. Well, let's get in the camera. Team USA West.
Oh,
this is the only time I know of that we had regions put on jerseys. I don't know why we did it that year. I think it just worked out that way. But
yeah, and again, one thing that may be unsurprising or surprising to people is, where you have a strong player, other strong players tend to develop because they're having to face a very strong player, or they get out of the game. You either get good or you go home.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
That's sort of the beauty of, so your friends tell you that they're planning on going to WTC 26 or 27 or whatever it is, or they tell you that they are going to 26. It can awaken something. So I'm gonna rearrange just a little bit, because Brandon, I know you were in the response chair, but let me ask the question of the whole panel and just get like 2 to 3 minute responses out of everybody. So your friend tells you they're setting a goal to go to the WTC, or they are going to the WTC. How can you support them, and how can you make that like real for yourself too?
I can start. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I had a pattern, and I was gonna carry it. We'll go counterclockwise on this one. So we'll go Brandon, Zosha, Joseph, Erica, and we'll close with you, Evan.
I'm sorry, I thought it was in the last year. So
you know what? I'm just gonna switch it up by readiness level here. So
I'm always ready, Alex. Where do you put me?
Yeah.
So I think, first of all, if you have somebody in your meta who is either, on that warpath, they tell you, I want to go to WTC, or they've been selected, get excited, because that person is now going to be the most enthusiastic, driven, motivated, I want to get games person that you've ever had in your community. And that's great for everybody. And the number one thing that you can do for that person is give them games. You may think to yourself, and I hear this all the time from players, I'm not good enough to give this person good practice. I'm not strong enough. I don't know the game well enough, whatever, this lack of confidence. That's nonsense. Just sort of at a fundamental level, every game is valuable, no matter how good you are at the game. And just being available to give that person games, do your best, give them games, talk with them about the game before, during, afterwards. Just be that training, that sparring partner for them is invaluable. And that's going to do so much for them. And number two, be there to talk with them about the game and just share in their hype and their excitement and make it infectious for your whole community. And not only is this going to help them improve, but it's going to address, I think, the number one danger that players face when they find themselves on this path, and that's burnout. Burnout is a very real thing, and I think we could do an entire podcast or live stream episode talking about it. And I think there was a question that somebody asked earlier, specifically, what's one thing that you wish you knew the first year that you went to WTC? And that's how to look out for and avoid and address burnout in yourself and your teammates. The first year that I went was the year that we won ATC. We had one teammate in particular who just did not have the motivation past, I want to say, like a month or two after selection to put in the amount of work required. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't looking for that. And I didn't know how to deal with it in terms of how to address that player's burnout. And it really hurt us in the event. It hurt me as a player who was this person's friend to see them going through this as well. But obviously it hurt our performance. And so if you can help build and maintain this level of excitement and hype in your friend and in the community, it does a lot to help prevent burnout in players when they're on this path of trying to train and practice and get to that point. And also just be on the lookout for it. And if you think that your friend might be experiencing burnout, reach out to somebody experienced. You can talk to me, you can talk to Alex, you can talk to anybody else you think might have dealt with this before. And we'll talk with you about things that you can do to try to help that person and pull them out of that. Because the only way to deal with burnout is to address it immediately. Because if you just ignore it, it only gets worse. So
you remember taking my phone call when I was in Athens, Georgia that one year, right?
I do, yeah. I was watching you play on stream, I think, and
I
noticed that you had like a difficult game, and I think I called you to check in on you and see how you were, because it seemed like you might be at that place, right? And it's like, be on the lookout for your friends and just pay attention. And if it looks like they need a timeout where you can just talk about, how you're feeling, do you need to take a break? How's the stress? How's everything else in life? Because there's so much to juggle, and all of that impacts your ability to improve and train as a player, and also just to play. And so I guess, just generally be there for them in addition to playing the games.
Yeah. All right, Evan, you were peak enthusiasm here. I hated to cut you off. Okay. Hit me up. Your friends are going to WTC, or they tell you they want to go to WTC. What can you do to support them?
I do think Brandon said one of the most important ones, which is to be excited. But I will add that I think when you're thinking about going to WTC, you should be thinking in kind of a multi-year plan. Like, it shouldn't just be I plan to go. I'm thinking I want to go 6 months from now. That's not realistic. You should be thinking further ahead. And as part of that, like, talk to other players. ask them questions, work on leveling up, work with your friends, and be that level of enthusiasm for them. To Brandon's point, you don't want to burn out with that like multi-year plan, but you do want to work towards something. You want to level up. So that would be my big piece of advice if you're going to be supporting your friends.
Yeah, being on that longer time horizon is such a big deal too. It Rome wasn't built in a day, and like WTC ain't gonna happen. Like I started back in January of this year. Like WTC, like probably not gonna happen for you in 1 year. But if you were really clear, hey, I'm going for this and I'm going to build a village around me, and and I'm going to support those around me too if they want it for themselves. That's a big deal. Yeah, long-term plan. I mean, I think probably my biggest failure personally when I went the first year is it was the end game, as opposed to the like, no, let's turn into a community leader and a mentor for others. That's the real like 5-year plan. So I think that's great. Yeah, Zosha, any thoughts for you on this one?
Probably just to reiterate what Brandon said about just if you want to support somebody, just give them games, even if you don't think that you're on their level. I play roughly 2, maybe 3 games a year, and they are against Jake. He is obviously a great player, and he would easily stomp me because I have not read my cards in the previous 6 months. But it's still good practice for him, and it's still worthwhile to him because he plays a lot of games on War Table, and it helps him just, kind of remember how to put his models on the table, how to move them, to get out of the War Table view of clicking on something and getting every single measurement. He can go back to measuring things out, proxying, and because he's playing in whatever tier is below the kiddie pool, he gets to practice and really take his time with moving models and the clean play and focusing on that portion of his sportsmanship. And he can really just focus on that. Obviously not the actual gameplay, easily beats me clearly, but he gets to focus on, just other things that might not make it into every practice that he does because he has to use more of his bandwidth on the actual strategy of the game. Also, I listen to a lot of his battle reports after every game. I'll say, hey, how did it go? And then he talks for at least 10 to 15 minutes about how it went. I don't really understand most of what he's saying. He's right next to me, so he's learning this for the first time. But I still listen, and I do my best to listen, and I try to pick up on keywords, and then I'll ask him questions like, oh, that's cool. Why did you do that? And just kind of challenge him, because sometimes he'll be like, well, I did it because of this. And then as he's saying it out loud, he'll go, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that because it opened up this. But it, kind of like, gets those gears moving. So listen to the battle reports, try to ask questions if you can. Like Evan said, and Brandon as well, excitement, hype train, and just support what you can. And when you see that it's burning out, or if you see them at a con and they had like a really bad game, grab them a drink, many of you see me at cons. I check in on Jake, pet his head, give him a drink, see if he needs lunch, things like that. Like, take care of them as people and understand that, they're burning a lot of calories and expending a lot of bandwidth on doing well on this game. So if all that you can offer is emotional support and a sandwich, sometimes that's great and what they need. And the last bit is just ask questions, really lean into the conversations that the community is having. There's so many Discords, so many servers, and so many people out there. I know that especially like Erica's Discord server is really great at supporting new players and giving a lot of tutorials and kind of helping people start from the very beginning and getting them onto whatever path that they need to. But we've got a great community with multiple servers and just so many people who are willing to answer questions. So just lean in, ask the questions. And that's it.
This is a wonderful excuse for me now. Now when I am rubbing my friends' heads and offering them food, like, it's for WTC, bro. No, that's great feedback though, and I think one of the wonderful things about that is it does not take much to be the kind of person who supports others with seriously qualified questions. And like, even if you don't feel like you're at their level, you know, you really, like, don't underestimate your ability to draw out qualified like questions and introspection out of somebody playing at their A game and really force them to interrogate by just asking what's there.
And honestly, some of the most thought-provoking questions that I asked Jake is, what's that mean? Like, explain it to me, like, I don't understand the game. And it does, you know, and like I said earlier, it kind of forces that fluency of the game, not just reading off the card, but saying, hey, what does that mean? And he won't just read it off the card, because I'm like, I can read the friggin' card, dude. What does it mean? Explain it to me, you know. And he will, and it's good, because it does, it challenges people to really make sure that they understand you know, what they're looking at.
Yeah. Erica, your best friend tells you they're going to the WTC for the first time. What do you do to support them?
So a lot of really great ideas and advice have already been shared. So I'm not going to necessarily echo those things specifically, but more player centric. So things to support them is I would recommend getting some kind of online tracker to track games. So you get a better feel on your matchups, certain armies, casters. A thing that Andy and I love doing when we're on our way to a steamroller or on a plane to a convention is downloading a bunch of these awesome podcasts that are War Machine centric. Tyrant, shout out to you. Battle Drip. There's a lot of really good great resources and ideas that are out there. So listen to those. The community is putting out some straight up bangers. I'm big.
This is a killer time for War Machine Media.
Oh, like, yeah. Like the content
we went through a bit of a desert for a while, but now it's just like hits.
Yeah, like what is it? Ryan's channel, Spell Rack. I get so excited when YouTube gives me a notification when one of his videos come out. I love the stuff that he's doing. Taking care of yourself. So we talk about the performance triad, which is nutrition, sleep, and exercise. This is a play of endurance. This game is like, you talk about going to events that are 4 and 5. I make the joke where my brain just falls off a cliff after round 4. You really have to train your body and your brain to have the endurance for this kind of event. And I really didn't kick it into gear until like this summer, when I had the realization, like, oh my God, like this is what training for an event like this. Like I said, we traveled 5 weekends in a row to something.
Zen in the art of War Machine maintenance.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you have to take care of yourself. Again, we talk about like exercise, being able to stand on the table or stand at a table, lean over, avoiding injuries like back injuries. I mean, that's a real thing. Some of us are older, you guys. Like we gotta keep a eye to this stuff.
Yeah. If you're playing this game after your 20s, you start to become specifically aware of how your physical health factors into the play of this game. And like Brandon and I have had many spirited debates about calorie intake and attention deficit at tournaments.
Alex is wrong, for the record, but go
on. I'm pro mild physical privation.
So I at a convention, like if I'm going to a weekend event, I'm very cognizant of what I'm putting in my body. So I put things in 2 different categories: food and things I eat. Food is what's going to be nutritious and help keep me going. So it's like, yeah, I could go get the chicken tenders and the fries. I'll go grab a salad and try and drink more water and just more clear stuff. It really helps me. It helps me not feel sluggish towards the end of the day. So the yeah, sleep, nutrition, exercise, it'll pay dividends on the table. And then the last thing I'll hit on is, the whole like War Machine enlightenment thing is really checking yourself and where you're at with your headspace. And when you start to, if you start approaching that precipice of being negative, identifying that and being able to reach out to your immediate community or any members of the War Machine community, I'm sure would be open to talking to kind of set you straight. But those would be the things that I would recommend for a friend that was going to the WTC.
Awesome. that one could be a whole podcast in and of itself. Is like the physicality of going to tournaments and how to manage yourself over a season. Joe, why don't you take us home?
I will be happy to take us home. I have had the privilege of doing this twice. Eric Akers and I have been friends the last few years, and I have been part of his prep routine every time he has gone. And that entails, one, a lot of excitement, but also a lot of discussion. We have a lot of back and forth about the game, about lists, about the meta in general. A lot of the impetus for my podcast came from conversations that Eric and I were having, and looking at the data as objectively as possible and looking at lists. It was for me playing a lot of these different lists as they became available, trying to get an understanding, or also trying to get games in against players that were playing some of these concepts that were coming up, and then providing my feedback to Eric for him to kind of digest and then us walk through it. Also, it's very important that you learn how to play a practice game. A practice game is very different from a regular game. It is one and when there's going to be stops and starts. It is one where you walk through and talk through bits of scenario. A lot of it is why we did certain things that we did, what a nuance change would be in terms of positioning. If you were to do this or made a slightly different selection in terms of your placement, and then it may be kind of re-racking and going from that placement and seeing where it goes. So those practice games may not end up in an actual result, but the result of that back and forth is really where you gain a lot of value for your WTC player and yourself as somebody that's helping a WTC player.
Right. Those are the intense level up games, not just for them, but for you too.
Yeah, it's really a phenomenal process. And if you have somebody that is even considering going to the WTC, one, be excited that they're even considering it, and two, see how you can help, because you'll be part of the process that gets them there potentially. And if they do get there, you'll be part of the process that helps them to get the results that they want to get, and helps your country. Not to put too fine a point on it.
Well, and I think that's something there too, is like a love of this game and a love of the community and a real thirst for what's more and what's next. If a local tells you they're going for the WTC, they're going for it, or they're going to it, man, tap into that enthusiasm, tap into that like sequence of next leveling games, tap into that sequence of traveling, of enthusiasm, of asking the next question. Because if they're going, you ain't far off, and you will learn so much by participating in somebody's process. If somebody says, I'm going to the WTC, I need your help, it means you're not far off either. You're like right there.
And Alex, if I can just add to that a little bit, one more thing that, if you're that person who's considering, do I want to go for WTC? It does so much for your local meta and community to have a player who is either aiming to make it onto a team or who makes it onto a team. I've witnessed it in so many different places. It brings so much excitement, it brings so much pride, and it brings so much improvement to that local community that if you are on the fence at all, think about not just what it can do for you, but what you can bring to your community by being their champion and that player who's going to push them forward or represent them, because it means a lot to a lot of people to have somebody in their community who is playing on that level or who is striving to get to that level.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, with that, I think I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this because this was, both in terms of what's going on with the USA Committee and with the future of United States War Machine. And then two, just in terms of this massive developing player segment. There's a lot for me to review here. What I'm going to say for now is we're going to pick up a lot on these conversations in the coming year. Everybody warm up your very best Queen wave as we say, Keith, take us away.
Goodbye.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone for being here. Thanks to the wonderful interim
Bye,
community
everybody.
and Zosha for being here.
Thank
There
you for
is
having
no
us.
Keith this week. It's me taking us away.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, Alex.